Ladies and gentlemen, sports fans alike, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago, one of the couple, two, three best podcasts around. So sit back, grab yourself a cold one and a Polish sausage, park your keister in the French room, and listen to Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago.
In Chicago, you know that all sports rock. The Bears, Hawks, Bulls, Cubs, and Sox. Pick your favorite, you can choose, as long as the Packers lose. For everything you need to know, it's Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. This is your hosts Alex and Sean. On this episode, we're going to be talking about little Bears, little Bulls, some baseball, and sprinkle a few things in between. But first, I'd like to thank our sponsor, the Rockford Ice Hogs. If you're not familiar with the Rockford Ice Hogs, they're the AHL minor league affiliate of the Chicago Blackhawks. What does that mean for you? You get to see the stars of tomorrow today at family-friendly, affordable prices. The season is going on right now, so don't miss out. Head on over to icehogs.com, get yourself a hat, shirt, jersey, tickets, and more. Tell them Swerski Sports sent you. Alex, my friend, how have you been?
I've been doing all right. I hope you are as well.
Can't complain over here.
Well, as you got the other week, I also got a letter from George McCaskey. Because we both sent in letters. You got yours first because you sent in yours first, and I got mine now. So now we both contained handwritten letters from George McCaskey, which, you know, as much as we rag on him, I got to say, pretty nice that he wrote us back. You know, not a lot of owners would do that, I don't think.
No, not at all. I would imagine there's very few owners out there that would do this. But, you know, it's also nice to know that if you ever have like a flight that comes in late, you could just call Ding Dong George and he'll come pick you up at the airport.
Yep, in his nice bear shoes.
With his Bears mask.
And his varsity jacket.
The 65 senior citizen in his varsity jacket. He wrote the note out in not in a fancy nice gel pen, but a Bic. Yeah, the same Bic that Ryan Poles used in his publicity photos, holding the Bic pen.
This is the only pen we have here at Hallis Hall.
It's our communal pen. We just got to take the chain off of it. But as soon as the photo's done, you got to put the chain back, or else people just walk away with the pen.
George, it's running low on ink. Some clipboard.
You just got to shake it. Put a little water in there.
George, it's not writing anymore. Scratch harder.
Have you tried using a Bic lighter and heating up the tip? That usually works. I learned this one from the Fonz. Hey! He hits George, the pen.
We can literally go down the street to Office Max and buy a whole pack of new pens.
Wow, we've got dead money on the books that we got to pay for. Can't be wasting money on Bic pens are expensive. I'll tell you what, I'm going garage sailing this weekend. If I see any pens and they're good price, I'll bring in some pens for everybody.
Imagine going to a garage sale thinking you're going to find pens.
Ding Dong George. And the funny part is like, on the one hand, it is nice that he wrote us both a handwritten letter and he hand addressed it. But there was like no substance. It was like a form letter that he's like, all right, I'm going to use something from the first sentence that they wrote, and then I'm going to put the same thing for everything else. Like, okay, Ding Dong George. Like, I don't know. I shouldn't call him Ding Dong George because he's probably listening now. Let's see what these fine young fellows are saying. Ding Dong George. I thought they were big fans. Oh my goodness. It's just mind-boggling. Like I appreciate like the fact that he did write us a letter, but this does speak to this whole organization is a mom and pop run organization. Yeah, but it's such a mom and pop run organization. It's crazy. Like this is a multi-billion-dollar franchise that's looking to build a multi-billion-dollar stadium, and the owner is handwriting us letters because we wrote mean notes.
Well, I tried to be more diplomatic, to be fair. I just saying.
I mean, I didn't call him Ding Dong George in the letter.
You should have slipped that in there, just like subtly.
I mean, I laid into Matt Nagy a bit, and I did give some credit to. I mean, I did tell them that their whole press conference was tone deaf, but other than that, I thought it was pretty factual.
Yeah, I mean, none of our letters were like insulting or like, personal.
Yeah, I mean, it was there was a lot of factual things in there that may not have been things that anybody that wanted to hear, but so it's just, but to his credit, he sat there and read them. It's nice to know that if you mail a letter to George McCaskey, that it does get to his desk and he does open it and read it.
Yeah. Good. They're at 1920 Football Drive.
Yeah. So everybody out there listening, feel free to write him a letter. He'll write you back. You can have a pen pal, old school pen pal.
There's a new like preschool or like an elementary school program, pen pals with Ding Dong George.
Oh my goodness. Oh.
And the poster is just like a smiling Ding Dong George cartoon. Be pen pals with Ding Dong George.
And it's like the Matt Nagy picture with the McDonald's uniform. It's like that dopey. It's like a dopey picture of George.
Yeah, they found like a really bad picture of him like walking around like during one of the tailgates or during like Family Fest or whatever, and they just used that.
No, I'm just picturing somebody put a bald cap on him and then put a visor on him. So he could be like Matt Nagy.
What? Oh my God.
Oh, I'm just picturing George going incognito like he's Fletch.
It's like that Simpsons episode where they're trying to assassinate Abe Simpson and they're all dressed as Homer's family.
Yeah.
I'll be in the car, dudes. No, not again.
Man. But there's not much Bears going on right now. I mean, I saw Bob Babich retired, former Bears. I believe he ended up being defensive coordinator for a bit, but he was the linebackers coach. So you've had Lovey gets a head coaching job. Rod Marinelli and Bob Babich are retiring. But there's some key dates that are coming up in the next coming weeks. Like the scouting combine in Indianapolis is in like a little over a week. So it's March 1st through 7th. And then the legal tampering period is March 14th through the 16th. So we're like 3 weeks away from that. And then April 4th will be the first time that the Bears can start working out with Matt Eberflus. And then the draft is April 28th through the 30th. So we're starting to kick into gear here. And I wanted to take this time to, ask you how you would rank the Bears' needs from top 5. Like what position and position group would you rank as your top 5 need for the Bears in order?
Okay, so number 1, I feel like number 1 has got to be either O-line or wide receiver, because we know for a fact, based on especially what Ryan Poles has said, O-line is going to be a very big focus, very big focus for him. And you need to protect your quarterback. So I want to say O-line is number one. That would be my number one, with number two being wide receiver. I like Darnell Mooney, but you need a lot more. Number three, I would say cornerback, because you don't have much in the secondary. So following that, I would say safety after cornerback. And then fifth, I mean, you got tight ends. Whether or not Cole Kmet's your guy going forward is yet to be seen. You're good on running back. You got your quarterback. You got your kicker. The punter's easy to find. I mean, you got pretty good edge rushers. Maybe I could realign, be more specific. So O-line number one, I think your tackles are going to be very important. I think tackle would probably be my number one spot for the O-line, followed by wide receiver, followed by cornerback, followed by guard, because I think James Daniels might walk. And then I would put safety. So I'll go with that.
I'm going to go number one, cornerback. And I say this because literally we have Jalen Johnson and then people that probably, we don't know what we have in Thomas Graham, but everybody else does not belong in the NFL on a winning organization.
No, you're right. You're right.
There's and you know what? This was hard because I started going through this and the Bears have a lot of needs. This is going to be a tough rebuild. I mean, sorry, I don't have a tough. It's going to be a tough to rebuild this year. I saw somebody wrote an article. Can the next year's Bears be this year's Bengals? No, they can't.
And not a whole. Whole lot of draft capital.
No, not at all. And the thing is even if you trade back, your first pick is like pick 39. So it's not like if you're in the first round and you can trade back and get a bunch of capital, you trade back in the second, you're just picking up extra middle draft picks. But number two I had as wide receiver, because right now, pretty much Darnell Mooney is the only wide receiver you have under contract. I believe everybody else is a free agent.
Because Grant's a free agent, right?
Grant is a free agent. Robinson's a free agent. Everybody's a free agent except I believe Daz Newsome is not, and Darnell Mooney is not. So you just have a lot of needs. Like I mean, just bodies in general, let alone good ones, like just bodies. You don't have any wide receivers. And I started like thinking about it, and I have a feeling the Bears are going to try to sign a couple of low-cost veterans, one or two, and then bring in a mid-tier wide receiver, like a Juju Smith-Schuster or a DJ Chark or Christian Kirk, somewhere in that $10 to $12 million range, where you're paying them good money, but it's not elite money.
Right.
And that way, I'm a big believer in trying to shore up all positions before the draft, because when you go into the draft needing to draft somebody, like if you're like, man, we need a wide receiver in this draft, we have to, it really starts putting you in a hole because you start looking at all
You
of
tend to
your
reach.
you reach, right? And you know, if the draft is weird, and you know, one team doing something that nobody was expecting just throws chaos and everything. So that's why most teams, when you know they start doing their draft, they do like mock drafts of their own, and they, you know, where people take different teams and they try to see, all right, well, where if they go here, how does that change the draft? Just to kind of anticipate how it's going to start moving. You know, oh, hey, is there going to be a run on tackles coming up? Because that's what happens is, you know, if tackle starts falling, and then finally when somebody takes that tackle, then everybody that needs a tackle starts going, oh man, I need a tackle. And then there's like a run on them. And, you know, every year, even though this year in the draft, there may not be, I mean, if you are looking just at talent, there might not be a quarterback in the first round, but you know you're not going to have a draft without a quarterback in the first round. So you're going to see a bunch of teams reach, probably 2-3 teams reach for a quarterback that's going to adjust things.
I could see Pittsburgh being one of those teams. I could also see the Minnesota Vikings looking for a Kirk Cousins replacement if they're not in on Deshaun Watson.
Right. So you look and so you could see this playing out a whole bunch of different ways, and you don't want to be in a position where you're like, oh man, I was anticipating a wide receiver falling to me, and now I have to reach and pick a guy that's 15, 16 spots higher than probably he could have been had, or even more. And just because we're drafting out of need. So that's why I hate doing. So it's nice to shore up, where that way you're drafting from a position of strength. Like, hey, if somebody falls to us, like at 39, if we get somebody that we expected to be in the top 15 and they fall to 39, you're like, you snatch that guy up regardless of position.
And to my point about the offensive line, I feel like you can use free agency to not completely rebuild the line, but you can help plug some holes that can do a solid enough job in free agency.
And that's kind of the hope. And wide receiver, I think, can be done that way. So that way, if, you know, I have a feeling that a top tier wide receiver will fall to them at 39. Like either the kid from Penn State or the kid from Ohio State. I think one of those guys will end up falling to the Bears at 39. And both of those guys have grades in the mid to upper half of the second round, you know, like a 15 to 25 range. So I feel like one of those guys will fall to the Bears because somebody's going to draft high, but, you know, not needing to draft one of those guys would be nice. So wide receiver, I have 2. I broke offensive line down into interior and offensive line, which would be the guards in the center, and tackle. I have interior offensive line as 3 because James Daniels is a free agent, and
it costs some money too.
And I saw on a Giants board, one of their articles, or not on the board, like one of those like fan-sided type sites for the Giants. Somebody wrote an article how the Giants were prepared to offer $50 million for a contract for James Daniels.
Jeez.
So I would say that you know there's a good chance you could lose him, and you need to upgrade center. And your Sam Mustafa's already a restricted free agent, but you need to upgrade over him. He was not good last year. So I have that as 3.
Can Roberto Garza come out of retirement?
Oh, Roberto Garza.
He was a solid player.
Yeah, he was long in the tooth, but he was solid. 4, I have linebacker. And part of this is we're playing 4-3 now. So we're going to be playing with three true linebackers instead of edge rushers being linebackers. And really, we don't have a lot of guys under contract. We have Danny Trevathan, who I'm expecting to get cut.
I think he's done.
Unless he's willing to take a pay cut.
Did he even play last year? Like, I don't remember a single
he did. He just didn't play much.
Yeah, I mean, I forgot he was still on the team at times.
Yeah. So, and then you've got Roquan Smith, and yeah, I think that there might be one more guy on the contract that's a practice squad type. But you just don't have a lot of linebackers. You need bodies. Like, you need somebody that's going to be able to play middle linebacker. Cause I'm guessing, that they're going to move Roquan Smith to the same position that, Lance Briggs played.
And then you have Mack and Quinn on the edges of the line.
Because they'll move to defensive ends.
Right, exactly. Which I think for them is good. Like, I like the idea of Quinn and Mack being at defensive end. I do.
And so you're going to need at least two more starting quality linebackers. And, maybe they bring back Ogletree for another year, but they need bodies. And then 5, I put defensive tackle. Bilal Nichols is going to be a free agent, and I don't think he's going to be cheap to bring back. Akeem Hicks is a free agent, and
I think he's done here, honestly.
I think he burned that bridge. I mean, the bridge, I guess, technically was, with Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy, and neither one of them are here anymore. But he hasn't been healthy in 3 years. I feel like we got the best out of him, and I wish him nothing but the best. I have nothing against him. I'm just saying, I just think this ship has sailed. Yes, I would agree. I mean, if they could bring him back for the veteran minimum or somewhere near there, you wouldn't hear me complain.
He's probably not good. He's probably going to want more than that.
Here's the thing, is he can want as much as he wants.
But what are they willing to give him?
Yes, because there are 32 employers, and that's it. And if none of them are going to be willing to give him $10 million. I don't think. I think the cap he'll get is 5. I think that might be the peak.
If they brought him back for maybe even 2, I wouldn't be that upset, but I don't know if you go much higher than that.
Yeah, I mean, or if you can, make it a, I guess, incentive laden contract. That way, if he performs, he gets paid. But if he's hurt or he's not playing well, then, you protect yourself and your bottom line.
Do you think it'd be fair to say that if Akeem Hicks hadn't battled injuries the past 3 years, he would have gotten an extension at some point?
Oh, I'm sure he would have.
At least they would have tried.
Yeah. But
how many games has he played over the past 3 years? I mean, he was hurt a lot in 19 and 20, and then last year too. So yeah, I don't really, I either see him coming back at little money or not coming back at all. I lean towards he's not coming back.
Yeah. So then without those two, you've got Mario Edwards, Angelo Blackson, Kyrus Thomas, or Tonga. So you don't have a ton of bodies there. I have that. So that I have that as 5. And then went down to 7. So 6 I have as safety, because literally you don't have another starting safety caliber even on the roster. Of your 4 of your 4 safeties last year, only 1 is still under contract. So, and then 7 I have is tackle, offensive tackle. I don't know what the Bears are going to do. And it's nice that the GM and the assistant GM are both former offensive linemen, going to have a lot of input. I have a feeling you're going to see some shuffling of linemen. I wouldn't be surprised if they went after a tackle and then kicked Larry Borum on the inside at guard and then didn't bring back James Daniels. It would give him a lot more flexibility to do other things. If Larry Borum can play, then, but it's going to be interesting. I mean, I still would not be sad if they brought back Jason Peters on a veteran minimum deal to be that swing tackle.
I wouldn't either. You hope they do a hell lot more than that.
Oh, they need to do a whole lot.
Which they Ryan Poles clearly is invested in making that offensive line better. I mean, he just is. You have too many holes. You have too many question marks. We'll see what he does with Tevin Jenkins. I would like him to go back to his natural position. You got to hope that Tevin Jenkins is healthy going forward, which, that's going to be important as it is. I mean, it was a really weird year under Nagy pace with Tevin Jenkins. He was hurt for most of it, and then he was moved. And I think he needs time to play at his natural position and actually play healthy. But, that's only part of the battle. You're going to need to plug a lot of holes in that line. You got to protect your quarterback, man. We saw how many times Justin Fields got sacked. And, the other thing about looking at the Bears roster too is that pretty much every spot, you look and you say, man, even if the top guys at the position look good, like on your defensive line, you got Robert Quinn and Khalil Mack, it's pretty dang good. And you look at other spots too. You look at the tight ends, Cole Kmet, who I'm a little iffy on. I think there could still be some potential there. If he's in the right system. You look at the running backs, the running backs look good, but, just so many of it lacks depth. And I'm not talking about just number 1, number 2 guys. I'm just talking about depth, period. Even if it is a better position, like the running back position, you think, man, you could look at so many of these other places and say, this lacks depth, that lacks depth. Like the running back position is one of the few positions I feel like is pretty set in stone. Now, we don't even know what's going to happen with Cohen, but at least you have Montgomery and Herbert. And at least that as long as those two are healthy, you can bring in, some third string guy if Cohen's not ready. And there's not much pressure on that, because you're pretty much set there where some of these other positions, there's just no depth whatsoever.
It's unreal how little depth there is. They just don't have people. This is a very thin team. So I have, with the amount of money they have and the amount of contracts that they can peel away to create cap space. I feel they can put together a decent team, but they're going to be a team that's very thin. And if they sustain, serious injuries or a decent quantity of injuries, they're going to have a tough time because they just don't have the horses. And it's going to take them time to build up depth.
Now this is obviously, I think on the surface, we'd all say yes, but we saw how Cordell Patterson was used last year in Atlanta, and he did really good things in Atlanta. Excuse me. And I would love for him to come back to the Bears. He could be used in so many ways. It could help fill a gap at wide receiver. Obviously, it wouldn't be the only solution, but it would give you another option. You'd have your return man on special teams. That's solved. Heck, he could even take a few handoffs every now and then. He's kind of a super utility guy. The thing is, he's probably going to, after the year he had in Atlanta, he's probably going to command more money than he did this year.
I don't know. I don't know what he'll command.
It has to be more than this year, I feel, though, right? I mean, you saw what he did in Atlanta.
I do. And, if you, he's going to cost more, but what was he this year? Like 2.5? Or is he, what was his contract? Let's see. It was a 1-year, $3 million contract.
The funny thing is he didn't make the Pro Bowl this year, but his value was much higher than he was on the Bears because he was a back-to-back Pro Bowler and All-Pro with the Bears. But last year, if you're into kind of the AV, the value on Football Reference, with the Bears in 2 years, he was a combined 6 AV. Last year, he was an 8 AV. That's tied for highest with his rookie year.
Yeah, but he's on the wrong side of 30. And I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I wouldn't be sad to bring him back. If you had him as your 4th wide receiver. So I'm going to say Mooney. Odds are Mooney's probably going to be your 1 just because of the cap issues you have. You're not going to bring in somebody that's better than him, very likely. Which, fine. If you're not going to have a true number 1, then, if you have several number 2s, okay. But Mooney, probably we're 1. And then, whoever you sign as your bigger money free agent is your 2. I'm assuming you probably draft somebody. It's your 3. And then Cordell Patterson as your returner /4. I could live with that.
If you want to put something in perspective a little bit more about what Cordell Patterson did last year in Atlanta, for the first time in his career, he had over 1,000 scrimmage yards. He had 1,166. And for the first time, he had more offensive touchdowns, 11 than any other year. It was the first time ever he broke double digits in that category. So, he's also got a lot more touches this year than ever before. So obviously these numbers make sense. But my whole point is that he was finally utilized correctly. This is a guy who was a 4-time Pro Bowler and 4-time All-Pro, but yet he was always kind of the gadget guy, the super utility guy, probably best known for being a return man because he's the best return man in the game. He's probably the best special teams player in the game. But when he was rightfully utilized in Atlanta, you saw what the guy can do. And if this offense is going to get better, I feel like a guy like him would really, really help in helping making Justin Fields better. But we'll see what he commands. We'll see what happens. But I would absolutely bring him back if you could.
Yeah. So, SpotTrack has it as a market value of a 2-year, $6.2 million contract. That's the case. You'd be silly to not try to sign him.
I'd do it. I'd absolutely do that. Because I believe they signed him to a 2-year deal. Yeah, it was a 2-year deal when they signed him before 2019. Then he got the 1-year deal. Bring him back on a 2-year deal.
Oh, wait. See, they updated this now. So I was reading it from an article that was quoting it. Now they're according to SpotTrack, their market value on him is $9 million a season. That's a little tougher to swallow.
Okay,
yeah.
That seemed really low when you read that. Like 2 years, $6 million. Like, really?
Yeah, but but it's a spot track. I don't know what they're going to base that on. I mean, how they base that. Um,
It's a guess.
it's a guess, and it all comes down to what people think. Because I was shocked that the Bears didn't bring him back for this past season.
You know, if it was 2 years, 9 million over 2 years, I'd still say that's worth it. But if you're saying 9 million per season, and I feel like he'd get at least 2 years, no more than 3, but I don't see him signing another 1-year deal after this year.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. We'll see how the market shapes up. But if you can get him at a value, I'd absolutely take Cordell Patterson back. I mean, like, he was a fun follow on Twitter, and he seemed like he liked being here, and he was a recruiter. Like, he was trying to get people to come and played well. And if only we had somebody that wasn't an idiot as an offensive mind that could actually try to utilize him.
I think about how much better he could have been utilized for what he's able to do.
Stupid Matt Nagy.
But man, just going back to what we both listed, wide receiver is going to be so important. And I feel like you're going to want to mix things a little bit. You're going to want tall guys that can just beat you with your size. You want guys that can outrun them. And you want guys in a slot or guys you could dump the ball off with. Because if you're going to open up your playbook, you're going to want to have different guys. What my true dream is, look, it's pretty obvious that the best wide receivers we've had are like Allen Robinson, Brandon Marshall, right? I mean, Can you really argue anybody else? I don't think you can.
Yeah, I mean, they're good wide receivers.
Right. I want someone like a Jamar Chase. I want someone that just can change a game. A game-changing type of guy.
The problem is that in free agency,
good luck finding that.
I mean, there's definitely one, Davante Adams.
Yeah, and that's not happening.
But that's not happening. Even if they don't franchise tag him,
he's not coming to the Bears.
He's not coming to the Bears, and the Bears they have so many holes they have to fill. If you put all of that money towards, I mean, he's going to want, like, the Bears would probably have to pay him an average value of 22 to 25 million a year.
With the holes they have, I mean, it's not like they're one player away from being a Super Bowl contender. They're many players away from being a Super Bowl contender. And the way things are going, I don't see why Green Bay's probably going to franchise tag him, right? You would think. I
think a lot of it just depends. Green Bay is a weird situation. Is they can either gear up to do another run or blow it all up.
Right.
And I don't think there's going to be no middle ground. I think it's going to be one extreme or the other. And I think it all starts with Aaron Rodgers. If Aaron Rodgers says, yeah, I'll sign a new deal and come back, then they gear up and try to bring everybody back that they can and kick that financial burden down the road. But if Aaron Rodgers is like, no, I think my guess is they franchise tag Davante Adams and then try to trade him.
Right. They don't want to just lose him.
Right. Because I think somebody's probably going to trade you a first round pick for the rights to him. But I mean, there's not a lot of game changing wide receivers that you're not going to have to pay big money for. The other way you get them is you draft them, and the Bears don't have a high enough draft pick to get one of those guys. So I think your best bet then is to just make sure that you have a solid group and do by committee.
Right. Exactly. So find somebody.
So if you have several guys that are all really, pretty solid, you find matchups, because not everybody's going to have run 3 solid corners deep, so you find the matchup that works for you.
Right.
And I'm starting to warm up to the DJ Chark signing, because I don't think he's going to cost, he's going to probably be a $10 to $12 million guy, but he's 6'4" and runs a 4.3 440.
Yeah, I'd take that.
So, but yeah, they definitely need help at wide receiver, and I would like to see a big wide receiver that has some speed, because Justin Fields is going to put some deep balls out there, and if you can add some height and speed out there, you can really change the outlook on this offense.
Yeah, no kidding. I also think too, when you look at the offense dynamic itself, you're going to want to be able to execute on the dink and dunk stuff as well as the deep stuff. But, we've seen that the past few years, the best dink and dunk they could do was just short dump passes that were uncontested, because look at last year. They couldn't get any separation anywhere in the field, any of the targets for Justin Fields. They created absolutely no separation. And you wanted to do a screen pass. Well, you can execute a good screen pass if you got the right personnel to execute the play. That means you need the right blocking. That means you need the right guy taking the pass who's able to, get good speed and, elude some defenders. There's so many things that go into a good offense. It's more than just one good quarterback or one good offensive line. You need all different types of guys to execute all sorts of plays, because the scenario we all want is for this playbook to be as open as possible, for them to have as many tricks as possible so they can generate yards and generate points. You need a lot to do that.
You look at the Kansas City Chiefs, and sure, they have a lot of explosive plays, but I think they're probably towards the top of the league in number of short passes. But the thing is the difference between the short passes they threw and the short passes the Bears threw is the Bears short passes went for short yards. And when the Chiefs throw for short yards,
they could go for 40 plus,
or they're at least going for 5, 6, 7 yards, because there's yards after the catch. And the Bears just didn't do that. There was a tackle right away, boom, caught. And, part of
That's
that
what
is
happens when you create no separation.
And part of that is is the big part of it is the scheme. You got to scheme these guys open. The Bears always, it was that it was a short pass. It was that wide receiver bubble screen, and everybody could see that a mile away, and they knew it was coming. And, part of it's going to have playmakers. Hopefully Tariq Cohen comes back healthy. Who knows if he's even on this team, because he's a cap casualty candidate. But you have him. He's a guy that has home run speed and agility, that if you get him into a little bit of open space, that he could be a huge weapon for Justin Fields.
Especially if he's not just forced to run north to south.
Give him some space. Don't just run him between tackles. Is get him out there in the short passing game. And, so there's a lot of things that can be done. And the offense that we've had the last 4 years was not an innovative offense. It was not a dynamic offense. I mean, when you have an offense that does not have a screen in it, that's just poor management, because every offense should have multiple screens, because they're useful. They're useful for short yardage. They're useful for, when you need to gain big yardage on like 3rd and 12s and 3rd and 18s. like that's the type of play you run. Or if you can't seem to stop the pass rush, is you screen them to death. And the Bears just didn't have that in their repertoire, which was embarrassing. It was literally lack of preparation.
Yeah, and I mean, you watch it over and over, and Bears fans are like sickened when they hear the word screen. It's because unfortunately we've never been able to execute them well where so many other teams can.
Yeah, it's not that we don't have backs that can run it or a quarterback that can, execute it. It's just I don't think they prepare. It was probably in the playbook, but they never ran it. And the thing is if you don't practice plays, you're not good at them.
I also do think they need better personnel when it comes to blocking and just personnel that will better execute those screens. And if Tariq Cohen is healthy and can play, that's obviously a big, big addition. But no, I do agree with you as well. The scheme was part of it. The coaching was part of it, and it wasn't good. And that's one of the many reasons why it never really worked.
Yeah. But if you don't practice a play, you're not good at it. And running a screen that takes a lot of practice because it's a timing thing. If you hold your block too long, you mess it up. You let your block through too fast, you mess it up. If you end up running downfield after you let your block go or the defender go through, you're going to get a flag for man downfield. Like it's a lot of timing issues, takes practice. And if you don't work on it because it's not part of your regular offense, then you're going to be bad at it when it comes time to run it. And the Bears ran so few of them that it's just, of course it was going to, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Well, we're not going to practice it. We're not going to run it. But then when it's time to run it, it's going to be bad. And then, whoa, see, that's why we don't run it, because it was bad. It's bad because you didn't practice it. You didn't work on it. You didn't, it takes effort. Everything, like that's the NFL. Most of these NFL offenses take timing and practice. And that's why you see quarterbacks that have been in the offense longer be able to execute it better because the offense.
Yeah. And that's why you really hope that this Eberflus staff can do that well. If you don't know what you're doing, and especially if you got a rookie quarterback, I mean, that's one of the many reasons why Justin Fields had some struggles last year. Just nothing was well coached. And because you saw Justin Fields throw some really nice balls last year, and the target wasn't in the right place, it was dropped. Yeah, Justin Fields has a lot to work on. I'm not putting all the blame on the team around him, but even if there was a better scheme last year where guys could create more separation, where guys can catch the ball more consistently, because I think drops are a bigger issue than people like to believe with this team. And if you actually mix things up properly and you got the right personnel to do it, Justin Fields' numbers would have looked a lot better last year, even if he did have some trouble reading some offenses and some trouble holding on to the ball. And, not having the best line in front of him. But if your scheme was better, you would have seen better results even with a poor offensive line and a rookie quarterback. I guarantee it.
I think I agree with you. And, it's tough. It's tough gauging too, what degree things were personnel versus scheme and coaching preparation, because honestly, Matt Nagy was an absolute disaster. And sure, most players didn't give up on him, and he held the locker room even though it was a bad team. His offensive scheme was just atrocious. Like I can't, it had to have been one of the worst offenses in the league. And so you're like, okay, how does that impact our evaluation of players? Because if you have a bad system, a player that otherwise maybe, maybe isn't as bad as we thought, just looked worse because they were in that bad system. And if you
Some
put him in
people are wondering about Cole Kmet.
Yeah, Cole Kmet could be one of them. You just wonder if you put people in a better position, can they perform to a degree that is good enough for what you're trying to do? And I that's tough. That's got to be, honestly, that's probably the toughest thing for Ryan Poles to come in here and evaluate is, what's the true sense of who these guys are as players when they were under a bad system.
Right.
And so, that's at least he's not having to make contract decisions on a lot of big money guys that he doesn't have a ton of evaluation on. Like, the Giants are going to have to come in and make a decision on their quarterback. So that's that. And they, that's a lot tougher of one. The Bears, most of the guys are, you have a sense as far as what you're going to do with them, but it's big money guys. So that's a tough situation. I don't know how you do those evaluations when so much of it was poor coaching and poor scheme in place. But yeah, so it's going to be exciting to see. So it's going to be exciting to see how the Bears start shaping up, and it's honestly, we have no idea what kind of GM Ryan Poles is going to be. After we had Ryan Pace for a while, you started anticipating what kind of GM he is and what kind of moves he's planning to make, et cetera, et cetera. How he drafts. He's a guy that trades up a lot. Ryan Poles is a complete black box. So we're going to see in,
it's going to be the same because they're both named Matt and Ryan.
So somebody I work with who knows I have like this show, but clearly has never listened. He messaged me out of the blue and was like, Sean, I got a topic for your show. Like, oh yeah, what's that? That the Bears got rid of Matt Ryan and then they brought in a Matt and Ryan. I was like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not. I'm just, we'll bring that up. We brought that up as a joke because so many people were saying it, but no, not a serious topic. Sorry. But yeah, in 3 weeks, we're going to see a better sense of what type of GM Brian Poles is going to be.
Yeah, we'll see. Like I said, I'm a bit more sold on Poles than I am Eberflus, but we will see what happens. Hoping for the best.
I'm hoping for the best, but preparing for the worst.
That's what we do as Bears fans. We've been through so many schemes now. We've been through,
Yeah, I mean, we've been through some terrible coaches and terrible GMs and just atrocious regimes here with Chicago Bears. And I
know Lovey and Angelo, we've been through.
Yeah, it's been bad. So I'm going to be cautiously optimistic with.
That's the right way to do it.
Yeah. All right. What do you want to move on to next?
Well, I'm sitting here thinking to myself, why do people watch the NBA All-Star Game? Because it's bad. It's really bad. And I'm glad that DeMar and Zach are having fun and all, but I'm not going to lie. I kind of cringed watching Zach LaVine play because I'm thinking, oh man, please don't get hurt. And but I mean watching, I mean looking at like a minute of it and be like, nope, turning this off.
Are you watching with your hands over your eyes, but watching through like this gaps between your fingers?
It was more like turn it on, watch a minute. Okay, that's enough for me.
Yeah, I mean the dunk contest was boring.
I missed that. I saw the 3-point contest with some friends at B-Dubs and we left right before that happened, so I didn't even see it. I heard it was bad.
It was, I mean, honestly, I think it's time to end the dunk contest. It has just gone downhill a lot. You know, like you have top guys not trying to be in it, and you know what sort of dunks can you do that are going to be, oh man, that was a crazy dunk. Like, you know, back in the day, it's just new things were being developed, and you know, guys like Dominique Wilkins and Michael Jordan. But I think it's just lost a lot of its luster. I like the 3-point shooting contest. I think that's you know, the skills competition and 3-point shooting competition, like those.
Yeah, I like the 3-point one. I mean, it's nice and quick, you know, it doesn't take too long. It's not drawn out. It's quick and to the point.
And it was crazy that a big man won it.
Yeah. Karl Anthony Towns. That was pretty impressive. And you could definitely tell Zach was a little rusty, but yeah, that's okay. Not worried about that. I'm more worried about his knee.
Yeah. So knee appears to be okay. His you know, second opinion came back good. He's playing in the All-Star game. So we should get a healthy Zach back. And I think we're only a couple days away from Alex Caruso going out and practicing.
And the Bulls made what I think is a pretty solid move in Tristan Thompson.
Yeah. So now we've got our backup center / power forward that we can put in. I think that's going to be huge for the Bulls. I think that was their biggest weakness, and for Tristan Thompson to be available, and basically the Bulls are paying him next to nothing for the rest of the year.
They didn't have to trade any assets to get him.
Zero. And I think I said the Bulls are on the hook for like $1 million.
Pocket change.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that's going to be huge. You're starting to get guys healthy again. You're going to have Alex Caruso back in soon. And then Lonzo is going to be back in the not too long. And then Patrick Williams will be back before the season is done. So, I mean, they go into the All-Star break in first place in the Eastern Conference. I mean, Brooklyn's a mess. Honestly, I think the Bulls can beat anybody in the East. I think the toughest time they'll have, and I've said it,
Milwaukee's going to be really tough to beat.
I'm not saying they're going to be a cakewalk. I think the Bulls can beat them.
I don't know.
I think the Sixers are going to be the harder matchup for them.
We can't beat Embiid. We can't beat that guy.
No, he's just,
and, you know, the other team too. I just want to mention really quick. The Heat, they're going to be a problem too.
I mean, I'm not saying all those are bad teams. I'm just saying is I think the Bulls have a really good chance to be able to beat them in a series.
Well, here's something I want to talk about with the Bulls, and this kind of relates on to where this team is going to go. DeMar DeRozan is freaking incredible right now.
Absolutely.
He is right now. He, to me, is the best player in basketball. I'm not talking like overall skill or talent necessarily, but in terms of the performance right now, he is the MVP. Could you imagine where this injury-riddled team would be without him? Nowhere.
Yeah, they would be a disaster.
Top East.
Yeah,
Hell, I don't even know if they'd be in the top 6.
Yeah, it's he has put this team on his back. He has been the absolute steal of free agency.
If you want to look at his stats so far, he's averaging 28.1 points per game. He's had the streak now of scoring at least 35, and he's doing this with barely shooting the 3 ball. Like, he's not just racking up threes and racking up these points. It's all driving to the net and mid-range jump shots. And you see what he does in the fourth quarter. I mean, my goodness. King of the fourth, as they call him.
Yeah, so I mean, he just, everything he does just looks with so much ease.
Here's what I'm afraid of. He's been playing so hard, so well. And, you need him to play hard and well when you have guys out, when you've had splotches of Zach LaVine being out, when you haven't had Lonzo, you need somebody out there that you can rely on. I'm just worried it's going to burn him out eventually. That's what I'm kind of afraid of. And all these games matter. That's the thing.
I don't know if, I mean, you're going to have to start giving him some breaks once people get healthy.
Right.
But the thing is once people start getting healthy, you can ease up on his minutes.
Yeah. I mean, if you have your healthy team again, and let's say you're up, by a healthy size, the fourth quarter, take him out. And then maybe on a back-to-back every now and then, if, you're going to have more back-to-back nights, maybe if you have a back-to-back night and the second game is against a lower opponent, maybe you say, hey, DeMar, take a rest tonight.
I give him scheduled days off and manage the minutes. I mean, I think these things are going to be able to happen now that we're starting to get bodies be healthy again. And that was just the thing is, he was sort of forced to play all these minutes. Like, what else did they they didn't have people to play.
Right. Now, looking at their next few games, you host the Atlanta Hawks. They're 2 games under 500, but Tristan Thompson's pretty, or not Tristan Thompson, Trae Young, sorry. He's killed you. So that's not going to be an easy game. Then you welcome the Grizzlies. That's going to be a huge test. The Grizzlies are very, very good. And then, biggest game of this month, the final game of the month, you go to Miami to play the Heat. Right now, they're deadlocked at 38-21. So after that, you go to Atlanta. Then you welcome in the Bucks. And then you go to Philadelphia. So overall, your next 6 games, you are looking at Atlanta versus the Grizzlies, at Miami, at Atlanta, hosting the Bucks, and at Philadelphia. Tough stretch.
Yeah, the schedule makers did not do the Bulls any favors at the end of this regular season.
It also you get a break with the Pistons, but then you play the Cavaliers. You get another break with the Kings, but then you go to Utah and you go to Phoenix, and then you play the Raptors.
It's a tough stretch. It's an absolute tough stretch. You're going to have to take advantage of those Atlanta games. They're not a pushover, but they're not an elite team. You're going to have to beat up on Detroit, and Sacramento, and the good teams where you got Memphis and Miami and Milwaukee and Philadelphia. If you split those, if you beat the teams you're supposed to beat and split the games against the tough ones, you're going to hold your spot. You're going to hold your spot in the standings. You don't have a ton of cushion, but these other teams are going to have off nights too. They're going to lose some games. I mean, they're all good teams, but they're playing, they have more losses than you. So these teams are beatable, and you got to assume that they're not going to be unbeatable going forward. So you got to win the ones you can, win the ones you're expected to win, and then try to split against the real good teams, the Memphises, the Miamis, the Philadelphias, and the Milwaukees.
Yeah, I mean, some of those Western Conference matchups, like the Suns and the Grizzlies, whew, that's going to be tough.
Yeah. So whenever you get the Knicks and teams like that, just got to beat up on them.
Yeah, no kidding.
And I think having a 50% win percentage in those tough games against the top opponents, that's doable. It's doable. It's not like, I'm sure you're going to get your ass handed to you in a couple of those games. And then, you know what? There's been plenty of times in this season where we've handed it to good teams. So I mean, at the time, Brooklyn, when they were good, we beat them by 25 points.
We're 2-1 against them on the year, I think.
Yeah. Beat Denver. And I mean,
we beat Utah at home, I think, early on in the season.
Yes. Beat them by 8. So it's, been able to beat good teams. It's just, you gotta be able to consistently put those together.
Just the thing with some of these teams is, since we play them during the trade deadline, they got a hell lot better. Milwaukee got better. Philadelphia got better. They improved their roster. I mean, obviously we got Tristan Thompson. That's an improvement, but we still have some time before we're fully healthy again. So, we're not going to have Caruso for a little while more. Lonzo Ball, same thing. So, this stretch is coming up now, so you're going to still have to play shorthanded.
I'll throw this out there too, is, on paper, some of these teams got better, but in reality, it takes time to mesh. Like, how is, on paper, adding James Harden to the Sixers to replace Ben Simmons, who didn't play, seems like a huge win, but how is James Harden going to play with Joel Embiid? I don't know. Maybe it takes them a while to figure things out. Who knows? You lose some of the chemistry that you had. That's the way I look at it with Tristan Thompson. I'm less concerned about that, is because he's coming in here and he's not expected to be a starter and work with the starters. So you might have some snags here and there, but I'm a little less concerned about that. But there's always a possibility when you have a team and you're playing well and you make changes, that even if you think they're going to be for the best, they may not work out like you hoped.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. To your point, chemistry can be very hit or miss when you acquire big names. And, we know James Harden, what he can do. We know what Joel Embiid, what they could do. Can they play together? I think they can, but we'll see. We'll see.
And plus, you've got an ace in the hole if you're playing against the James Harden team, is you pay the strippers at the strip clubs extra money to get him super drunk, and then he plays like crap for the game.
Sean Hopman buys Philadelphia strip club. News confirmed.
Oh man. Gotta get him drunk. But somebody did, I don't know if I sent it to you. I saw someone did like an analysis that showed that in cities that have better strip clubs, that are like known for their better strip clubs, James Harden performs worse when he plays in those cities.
So what cities are we talking?
You could Google the article, but I don't know how much I agree with the math of it as much as it was still funny, because he is well known for liking the nudie clubs.
See, if you would have just read that headline to me, I would have said, okay, is that an Onion article?
It was not. Somebody really went through and, I think they took some liberties with the math, but they actually were trying to do the analysis.
Okay, here it is from bosshunting.com.
Yeah, I'm trying to pull it up here. Statistically, James Harden performs worse in cities with better quality strip clubs.
Hypothesis. Wow, they really go.
Yeah, they really do go into this big time. So they have like all their methodology. There's actual they performed regression analysis and they visualize it in chart form. So there's charts and they actually did math. So the conclusion, I have proven to a statistically significant degree that the game performance of James Harden declines in cities with higher rated strip clubs. Correlation coefficient R between average strip club rating and total number of subpar games equals 0.4575. Given the nature of the subject matter, this would be considered a moderate to strong correlation. Coefficient of determination R2 between the average strip club rating and total number of subpar games equals 0.21. This means that James Harden's box score is 20% predicted based on the quality of the strip clubs. Other interesting factoids discovered by angry centrists include the following. James Harden's best performance comes in the city with the worst strip clubs, parenthesis, Toronto. James Harden's worst performance comes in a city with the best strip clubs, Miami. Salt Lake City has the third ranked strip clubs of all NBA cities. LOL.
All right, then.
So, like I said, it's like somebody really put in a lot of time and effort into this.
Yeah, this wasn't just a bullshit theory. They actually put the work in.
Yeah. So it is funny. So yeah, we'll all have to throw in for a lap dance for James Harden to when the Bulls are going to play.
Oh my goodness. Go to one of those clubs in Rosemont.
So what do you want to move to next?
Well, hockey thoughts I have. The Blackhawks continue to suck. The trade deadline is coming up and they still don't have a GM. Where is this team going to go? And what I truly see happening is maybe they'll trade Marc-Andre Fleury and a Calvin DeHaan and maybe some other random veteran, get little in return, and then just try to move towards the end of the season. I don't see anything drastic being done.
If you're not going to get value for trading Marc-Andre Fleury, then why are you going to trade him? That's my thing, is if you don't know who your GM is, and it doesn't sound like, have you even heard of them interviewing anybody except for somebody from the Cubs for reasons?
I think they've interviewed a few other guys. Not no names that pop out at you and say, wow. But then again, there's a lot of guys in the NHL where I'm not as well versed, but what I'm hearing secondhand is there's nobody really overly exciting yet in the search, but the search has been very, it's not been hidden, you've seen the reports of who they're interviewing, but it's not like the Bears search where every day you were seeing people doing analysis on all the candidates and all the people being interviewed. It feels like it feels like the Blackhawks are just kind of winging this. Like, do they have a vision? Do they have a goal? Do they feel like what they are doing is going to align with what they want to see? Or they just kind of going about this like, we'll see what happens. I don't know. I don't know what this plan is. And I know it's easier to have a plan when you have a GM in place, but still, like, what's their goal here? Are they trying to turn this around as soon as possible? Are they looking to go into a rebuild? We don't know, and maybe we won't know until the new GM comes. But I mean, we're approaching the deadline, and not having the long-term guy that's going to be in charge of hockey operations in place feels kind of blech.
Well, and they're so busy trying to muffle Rocky from saying anything publicly that they can't worry about the GM.
Yeah, Rocky's been moved to the little broom closet that John Paxton is in.
Do you watch The Office?
Oh yeah.
I feel like
he's Ryan.
I feel like Danny Wirtz is Ryan, and Creed is Rocky, and he gives him his own blog. He's like, all right, if all of your thoughts, we should put them here at www.rockythoughts.gov.www/rockythoughts.
It's just a Word document.
It's just a Word document, and he's just putting his stupid rants. Yes, everybody will hear these. No, put whatever you want.
The world will hear my anger as I further turn more and more into my weasel father.
God, but like, you're right. The Blackhawks are a complete disaster. I mean, like, if you look at the NHL standings for the Western Conference, the only two teams that are worse than the Blackhawks are the Kraken, who are a brand new team. So you expect them to be bad. And then the Coyotes, who are going to spend the next several seasons playing in a stadium that holds 5,000 people.
Oh, God.
Those are the only two teams that have a worse record than the Blackhawks.
And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because you don't have a first-round pick.
So, like I said, is like, at this trade deadline, you don't have a lot of moves you can make, but you better make the best of the ones that you have. And Marc-Andre Fleury would be one that you can move and get something for. So if other teams are not going to pony up, don't move off of him, because he's the only thing keeping you from being just a complete pile of shit. Like, this team is a disaster, and Marc-Andre Fleury is at least the thread keeping it from being worse.
And the whole thing with just the organization top to bottom from a hockey perspective, it's not like you have a gleaming farm system either.
No,
like, you don't. I like Jack Reichel and everything, but that's one guy.
And Rockford, like, as much fun it is to go watch Rockford games, they have not done a great job of developing talent there.
No, not at all.
Like, it's been actually probably disappointing. Like, there's people you're like, oh man, I'm excited about them. They've got talent, and they just never take that step. So
not at all. I mean, a lot of these other players over the years.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know what the future of the Blackhawks looks like for the next several years.
I don't think they're going to be contending for another 5+, honestly, with the way things are going. Hey, Sean, if it were up to me, if I had the power to do so, I'd say, all right, everyone with value, any veteran, this includes Alex DeBrincat, as much as I love him, I would just bulldoze the entire thing. the entire operation and start completely from scratch. Because if you're going to keep Taze and Kane around, and I get it, Taze is probably unmovable. Hell, I don't even know how much longer. Taze clearly has physical issues. I wouldn't be shocked, honestly. I would not be shocked if he called the quits sooner than later. I really wouldn't be. But Kane still has value. Alex DeBrincat has value. I know we don't want to trade him because we like him, but man, I top to bottom, the NHL level, Rockford, just bulldoze all of it and start completely over. Unfortunately, that's probably not going to happen because the Wirtz family is not going to want to go through a 3-year rebuild because they know, unlike the Cubs, unlike the Bears, they're not going to draw big numbers if they're rebuilding. If they go into next year with a completely torn down roster rebuilding, would it be right in the long run? I think so, but you're not going to get 20,000 people showing up to the United Center every night.
No, you're not. And honestly, you did this to yourself. You stuck by a bad GM and you let him do all kinds of things that put you in a pickle financially, and now you're stuck. You're in a position where cap spot wise, you're not that great. You're okay, but you're not that great. You don't have draft picks. You don't have tradable assets. And you don't have young farm system that's full of guys that you're excited about. Like, so this is like hell. Like, you're really stuck in you're
in the worst possible place.
Yeah, you're in a bad predicament.
And the other thing too is you can look back and kind of identify where things started to really go south. And it's my opinion that if they would have bulldozed the front office and the structure in 2018, I think you could have brought in a new mind and you still could have retooled around some of the things you had. But you decided to keep Stan Bowman around, and all he did was dig more and more of a hole.
Yeah,
and let's face it, he'd still be here. He'd still be here if the Kyle Beach stuff didn't come to light.
Absolutely. And the thing is, they should have done the teardown a couple of seasons ago.
And this is a guy who I've really stood by this guy. And maybe he needs to get something straightened out. And I know it's been kind of a rough journey the past few years since he was drafted, but Kirby Dach is really starting to disappoint.
Yep.
And I know he was injured. I know that. But if I were the Hawks, with what we've seen, I'd be tempted to just send him down to the AHL for a bit. I don't know how much good that's actually going to do him, but we might be going the cliche way with this opinion, but sometimes you kind of just need a kick in the pants. And I've given him the benefit of the doubt for most of this, but the results are just, for a guy who's drafted 4th overall, you'd think you'd be seeing a little better results right now. I don't know if he's not somewhere mentally or if there's something physically wrong with him. Frankly, I don't think they did him any favors by developing him correctly. I think that's part on the organization. But, the results aren't there. I don't want to totally give up on him yet, but I think you need to do something drastic. I'd say, you know what, Kirby? We're sending you down for a bit. But that's just me.
I mean, I would not be opposed to it, but you have to have a plan. The thing is just sending somebody down to Rockford and then letting them just play. Like, I don't think that's the right thing to do. I think you need to make sure you have structure.
I agree.
If Kirby Dach needs to be good in order for this rebuild to be successful.
Right. And I still think he can be a good player. I don't know. I could be completely speculating, but I read some of the quotes by Derek King, and I feel like there's something up with him. I don't know what it is. I have no idea. I'm not going to speculate anything, but I think there is something not right with him. Again, whether it's physical, mental, a little bit of both, I don't know. I just think there's something that needs to be fixed. It's more than just not performing on the ice.
Yeah. So you need to put some sort of structure in place, a plan in place to get him where you need him to be. And just the letting him play and figure it out is not the right thing, because, to achieve, and no matter what the situation is, if in order for somebody to achieve their optimal performance, everybody needs something different to get there. And, for Kirby, Doc, you have to figure out what that is and get that to him. If it's building up his confidence, then, how do you put him on a line to optimize his confidence and get him scoring, get him going? If it's, there's fundamental things, maybe then you send him to Rockford and you have somebody assigned where they're just working with him. Whatever the case may be, is you have to figure out what it is that he needs. If it's physical, get him, whatever treatments he needs. If it's something mental, get him whatever he needs. Like that you have to have a plan in place. And the problem is, I don't know who the adults are around him that in this organization and how they're handling all the things that they're handling and trying to develop players. It just seems like it's not enough adult supervision around there.
Yeah, and I also wonder this too. Do you consider moving Doc to the wing? I know other people have brought that up too, maybe moving positions, because the face-offs have been pretty ugly. If he moves to the wing and maybe focuses on scoring, maybe you'll see better results. I don't know.
It's a possibility. And, before I mentioned about the Blackhawks scenarios, that they had a decent amount of cap space. For next season, it's looking like they have about $25 million in cap space, but only 13 players on the contract. So they're going to have to pay to fill that roster. So it's going to add up real quick. And they have 0 goalies on the roster for next season.
Lovely.
So some of that money will have to go to a goalie or 2, preferably 2. So
man, Colin Dealey is the guy, the future.
Just him. Plays 82 games, start to finish.
Oh boy, could you imagine playing 82 games?
82 games straight. So yeah, this $25 million is going to get eaten up pretty quick.
Yeah.
But when you start talking about salary cap, though, is when you go into the next season, when Taves and Kane come off the books. You've got a metric poop ton of salary cap room.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would imagine you're probably 3 years off from being on the right trajectory, even. Because this season's a wash.
It's been a wash since it started.
And next season, I think, is going to be a lot of time just deconstructing and tearing things down and getting contracts off the books. And then the year after, starting to build up. The year after that, starting, to have the money to spend to put a team in place. So I would say 3 seasons before you even see any sort of fruit of the last several years.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think it just starts with they better get the right GM. Period.
They better. I mean, I don't really want to see them hire a baseball person to do things.
It's so dumb. Like, honestly though, if you want to bring in like somebody that's been in baseball as far as business goes or marketing, okay, like I said, those skills translate. Sports marketing, event management type things, salary cap things. Okay, if you wanted to bring a salary cap person in from NFL, all right, it's math. Like, I get it, but bringing in a general manager that's not a hockey person to run your hockey team, that's some dumb shit. I don't know how else to say it and be nice about it.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Do you want to wrap this up with a little baseball?
I guess so. Not much to say other than screw this lockout. It doesn't feel like we're going to be resolving anything soon. Did you hear about the last meeting that they had?
I have not heard anything lately.
It lasted like 15 minutes. Yeah. I mean, there's so many. I mean, there's a lot of things are far apart on. Obviously, service time and all that stuff, as we talked about last week, is a really big one. And, you want more compensation for minor leaguers, and it's just a big mess. And spring training should be happening right now. We should be looking forward to our first spring training games coming up, but we know that's not going to happen. We're not going to get any spring training activity until earliest March if they find a resolution, but I don't know if they are. Sean, I wrote something for Cubby's Crib this past weekend, and other people on Cubs Twitter, including the people from Bleacher Nation, have talked about it too, that this lockout is going to have a direct effect on some key prospects for the Cubs. And these are the prospects that are currently on the 40-man roster. So, yes, guys like Brennan Davis, Christian Hernandez, Owen Casey, Reginald Preciado, Jordan Wicks, they're going to be business as usual. They're starting up minor league camp. But for the prospects who are on the 40-man roster, they're on the 40-man roster. They can't do anything until the lockout's over, and the teams can't send them to minor league camp because you can't make any transitions from or to a major league roster when there is no collective bargaining agreement. So this means prospects including Braylon Marquez, who's the most important prospect on that 40-man roster, as well as guys like Christopher Morel, Nelson Velasquez, Alexander Canario, Alexander Vizcaino, just to name a few, Alfonso Rivas, Manny Rodriguez. They're stuck in limbo. They are stuck in limbo, and there's a good number of prospects overall that are on the current Cubs 40-man roster. So you don't want to see that.
No, you don't. This is going to be detrimental, and I think this is going to last a while.
I think so too.
I think both sides have just really dug in their heels. And I see some polls like from MLB Trade Rumors and some other places that have asking fans what they think will happen. And I think most fans were optimistic that we could have a close to on-time start to a season. And after like the last week or so, you're starting to see most fans be pretty pessimistic about where things are headed.
Yeah.
And I would consider myself having a pretty pessimistic outlook on where things are right now.
Yeah, me too.
You know, I would be shocked if we've resolved this by mid-March.
Me too.
Um,
I think we're looking at April, frankly.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna guess we'll see games by Memorial Day-ish.
Yeah, because think about it. You still need time for all those free agents to sign, and then you got to get into camp. And you can't help but wonder what a lot of those free agents are doing to keep them. I'm sure most of them are working hard to keep themselves in shape, but it's off their routine. All these guys are used to going into camp by now.
Yeah. And baseball is a game that you have like regimens, like you stick to it. This is what you do. And when guys are supposed to be in spring training and they're, there's a lot of guys that just don't have a contract yet.
And think back to Braylon Marquez for a second. He was the Cubs' top prospect in 2020. And he was on the taxi squad most of the year because of the COVID season. Then he missed all of last year. This was the year he was supposed to work his way back. And now he's lying in limbo. You don't want to see that.
I mean, but look at even like a, major league ready player. I mean, top, like Carlos Correa does not have a job.
No, he doesn't. Nicholas Castellanos doesn't. Carlos Rodon doesn't.
Kyle Schwarber doesn't. Like
Rizzo Bryant.
Yeah. None of these guys know where they're going. So even let's say that on March 10th that they sign a new collective bargaining agreement and that they say, all right, we're going to have, spring training start in 2 weeks. So, March 24th. That would give 2 weeks for these guys to sign a contract and then show up to camp. Like everything's just going to happen so lightning quick. And I don't even know if they're going to give 2 full weeks. They might be like, all right, sign this thing. We'll get into camp next week. And I'm sure it's going to be a truncated spring training.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
How is that going to impact health of players during the season? How is that going to impact the quality of the game that we see? Those are important factors to think about.
Yeah, all valid questions.
It's just crazy to think about. I kind of want to go through the top 50 free agents and see how many of the top 50 free agents are still jobless.
We'll see how quick they sign too. When the lockout ends, you got to start signing guys. Like, how fast is that going to happen? I'm sure they're going to want jobs as soon as possible. What are these bidding wars going to look like?
Question. This is going to be opinion based. Because clearly we'll never know the actual true answer.
Right.
Do you think agents and GMs are secretly talking? And
absolutely.
I have to think so too.
Absolutely.
That the GMs are having to do, then they're probably doing back channel things because ownership can't know about it. And but because
they're doing what Dwight does, they're writing their messages in urine and they're sending them to each other.
Because you have to, because you're Carlos Correa, say he gets a 10-year, $300 million contract. Like, that's just not going to materialize overnight. So I'm sure these things are like back channels that they're working on these. They're still talking. There's, maybe not as formal, as as concrete as they would be pre a collective bargaining agreement lockout. But I feel like their tampering is going on right now because I would imagine that once this lockout ends, you're going to see contracts coming fast and furious.
Yeah, I think so too.
It's going to be like when that legal tampering period in the NFL, where you're just like, oh, hey, the contracts were able to be signed 10 minutes ago, and we already have $1,800 million contracts. Oh, how did those materialize that fast? How did they write these contracts in 10 minutes? So you're probably going to see, once the collective bargaining agreement is agreed upon and signed, you're probably going to see just a ton of guys fly off the boards pretty quickly. I would imagine these guys have a good idea of who wants them, what the money is going to be. And now it's just a matter of waiting this whole situation out.
Yeah, exactly. I also feel like in addition to sending each other, PP messages like Dwight, they also have like each other in their phones as different names. So like Jed Hoyer has Scott Boras in his phone is like Carlos Spicy Wiener or something.
It is William Buttlicker. Hello, Mr. Buttlicker.
You know what? I like the sound of your voice. I'm going to give you Carlos Correa for under $200 million.
But you must fire the owner that I was dealing with earlier. You've got a deal, Mr. Buttlicker.
No, Michael, no. It's a $10 million sale.
Oh, that show is so good.
Love it.
Did you go to the Office Experience downtown?
I never made it there.
It's so good. It's so good. And they have so many.
It's so bad.
I think it's still going on for another couple weeks.
Yeah,
I took my daughter, who's never seen the show, but she had fun.
Good.
Like you can take a photo op doing Flunkerton, and pose with the medals.
Chili pot, right?
The chili pot
is there.
The chili pot is definitely there. The walking on hot coals, Dwight's beet farm, the wedding, Jim and Pam's wedding chapel, the actual office. You can go through people's desks. So if you like start digging through their stuff on their desk, like you'll find, like Easter egg type things.
I'm going to send you a picture of a gift I got from my buddy John. Shout out to John, who listens to the show and who guested on the show once last year when we talked about the Bulls. He got me, as part of a Christmas gift, this Evan Malone button, and I'm going to send it to you right now because I want to hear your reaction when you see it.
Yeah, when I was in the gift shop, I started cracking up so hard because they had like a long sleeve shirt, like a sweatshirt, and just all the way on the back, it just said Dink and Flicka. I was like, it's $50, but I was like, I need this. Oh my goodness. That is great.
Thank you so much, John, for this button. It's like my favorite button now.
That's so good. That honestly is one of my favorite scenes from that show is when Kevin
cracks me
spills the chili. I was like, if nothing else, if I just had the photo op spilling the chili, and I would, but it would have been worth it. But they had like the costumes the people wore, so you could measure like how tall these people would have been. They had Dwight Stapler in the Jello. They had the coffee mugs that Kelly made for everybody when she was mad at Jim and Dwight because they didn't.
I have one of those. I have the Andy Bernard one.
Yeah, so they had the coffee mugs in there. You can play. Was it Dunderball, where you bounce the ball off the wall? You can actually play that.
Oh yeah, don't isn't that what Oscar and Kevin do?
No, that's hate ball, where they play the folded football game.
Oh right.
The Dunder ball is where you take you have the ball and you bounce it off the wall from Toby's desk over to the annex part where Kelly is, and you bounce it off the wall.
Yeah, with like the barrier, yeah.
Yeah, so you can play it over the wall. So like my daughter and I were playing that, but then there's Flunkerton. You can get a photo op of wearing one of the medals that they made out of paper clips and yogurt lids.
Yes.
What else? There was just so many cool things. And then the warehouse is where they have the store. So the store is in the warehouse.
That makes sense.
So it was super cool. Of the Easter eggs, the only thing that like I was bummed about is when the hate ball, the football game that they played. I was hoping that on Oscar's desk that if you lifted up his calendar, you would see the scores. Yeah, they didn't have that. And they had, when you're waiting to go in, because they bring you in by groups because of COVID, they have a big map of Scranton. And some things are like the real things that are there. And then sometimes they have like things from the show, like, oh, here's Michael's condo. And I was like, where's Alfredo's Pizza Cafe? Like, it's not on here. But they had Pizza by Alfredo, but not Alfredo's Pizza Cafe.
Oh, it's bad. It's really bad.
It's really bad. Would you rather have, what was it? A lot of bad pizza or a little bit of good pizza? It's like, oh, Michael. That show is so good.
Always love it. Always watch it.
Was there anything else you wanted to talk about?
No, I think I've said my piece.
All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for this episode of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. I want to thank everybody so much for listening. Please hit subscribe however you listen to podcasts, whether it's iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, Google Play, Spotify, etc. Follow us on social media at ChiFam or at Swerski Sports, SwerskiSports.com, Facebook.com/Swerski Sports. Follow Alex for all of his happenings and his endeavors at alexanderjpatcreative.com.
You can also throw in Shy Fan Pat 2 in there.
Yes,
I'm on Twitter.
Yes, now. Back on Twitter, Shy Fan Pat 2. And make sure you share this podcast with your friends. That's how we grow the show. And thank you guys all so much for listening. And until next time, bear down.
Cubs win! What a lucky break! The good Lord wants the Cubs to win!
We thank Ditka and God for all they have provided.
Cubs win! Cubs win! Cubs win!
Oh, I don't want her. You can have her. She's a Packer fan.
She can't fit in my van.
And she looks like
Remember, New Yorkers, smoking crack is not legal on planes.
Bears 31 to -7.
the Bears. Oh, when the Bears go bearing down.